Hello everyone, got 4 dirty jokes for you today. So the banker saw his old friend Tom, an 80-year-old rancher, in town. Tom had lost his wife a year or so before, and rumor had it that he was marrying a mail-order bride. Being a good friend, the banker asked Tom if the rumor was true. Tom assured him that it was. The banker then asked Tom the age of his new bride to be. Tom proudly said, "She'll be 21 in November." Now the banker, being the wise man that he was, could see that the sexual appetite of a young woman could not be satisfied by an 80-year-old man. Wanting his old friend's remaining years to be happy, the banker tactfully suggested that Tom should consider getting a hired hand to help him out on the ranch, knowing nature would take its own course. Tom thought this was a good idea and said he would look for one that afternoon. About 4 months later, the banker ran into Tom in town again. "How's the new wife?" asked the banker. Tom proudly said, "Good, she's pregnant." The banker, happy that his sage advice had worked out, continued, "And how's the hired hand?" "She's pregnant too." So many years ago, a smart old sculptor was finally allowed to leave the Soviet Union and emigrate to the United States, where his son lived. However, as he was getting ready to leave the country, the old sculptor was stopped at the Moscow airport by a stern customs official. The official began rifling through his luggage, and it wasn't long before he found a bust of Lenin. "What is that?" the official asked, eyeing the sculpture suspiciously. "What is that? What is that?" the old man replied, his voice filled with indignation. "Do not say what is that. Say who is that. That is Lenin, the genius who thought up this workers' paradise." To the old man's relief, the official smiled and let him through. The sculptor boarded his plane to the U.S., excited to start a new chapter in his life. But when he arrived at JFK Airport, he was stopped once again by a customs official who began searching his bags. The official's eyes widened when he came across the bust of Lenin. "What is that?" he asked, his tone a little more aggressive this time. "What is that? What is that?" the old man retorted, his voice rising in anger. "Do not say what is that. Say who is that. That is Lenin, the bastard. I'll put him on display in my toilet for all the years he prevented an old man from having a good life." The official was taken aback by the old man's response but couldn't help but smile. He let the sculptor through, and the old man made his way to his son's home in Brooklyn. As he unpacked his belongings, his grandson couldn't help but ask about the strange bust he had brought with him. "Who is that, Grandpa?" the child asked. "Who is that? Who is that?" the old man exclaimed, a twinkle in his eye. "Don't say who is that. Say what is that. That, my child, is 8 pounds of gold." So it was Sunday, and the preacher has just finished an inspiring church service when Rick, the wealthiest man in town, stood up and asked to address the congregation. The preacher wasn't surprised at this. "Just make it quick, Rick," he sighs. "Sure, Father," said Rick. He cleared his throat and addressed the audience. "I can still recall the day when I earned my first dollar," he began. "That same evening, I attended a church meeting where the speaker talked about his humanitarian efforts. At that moment, I had only that single dollar to my name, and I had to make a tough decision. Give it to the speaker's cause or keep it for myself. I chose to donate it all, and I truly believe that God blessed that decision, which is why I'm a millionaire today," he finished, a tear gleaming in his eye. "Oh yay." An old woman in the audience stood up. "I dare you to do it again." So on a lazy Sunday afternoon, two senior ladies decided to go for a leisurely drive in a massive car. They both loved the feeling of being behind the wheel, but neither of them could really see too much over the dashboard. As they made their way through town, they chatted away, enjoying each other's company and the beautiful day outside. However, as they approached an intersection, the passenger noticed that the traffic light was red. She glanced over at her friend, who seemed to be oblivious to the signal. Trying to stay calm, the passenger thought to herself, "I must be mistaken. There's no way Susan would drive through a red light." But as they cruised through the intersection, she couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't quite right. A few minutes later, they came across another red light. This time, the passenger was almost certain that the light had been red, but she still didn't want to believe it. Maybe it was just my imagination, she thought. But when they drove through a third red light in a row, the passenger's anxiety skyrocketed. She was sure that they were putting themselves in danger. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. "Susan," she yelled, "do you know we just ran 3 red lights in a row? We could have been killed." To her surprise, Susan simply replied, "Oh, am I driving?"